It is my great pleasure to welcome back Sergey Young to Seeking Delphi. Sergey, how's it going?
Hi, Mark. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here with you today. It's going pretty well. I'm busy promoting the book, working in Longevity Vision Fund, developing Age Reversal X Prize. There's so many things happening in the world, in our field, in the field of longevity.
Well, that's great to hear. Of course, we're mostly here to talk about the book. I will ask you about the X Prize and how that's going. And I see the book there right behind your right shoulder. It's a little out of focus, but I'll have an image of it on the web page and on the YouTube video. So that will be good. So in terms of the book, I mean, I think you've been on before. I'm assuming my listeners more or less know who you are, but let's talk about the book. And what interests me about the book, I am first and foremost a futurist, is that you have broken it into two main sections that you call the near horizon of longevity and the far horizon of longevity. What is, and by the way, you've capitalized those terms as well. So what exactly is that? And then maybe we'll get into those two horizons a little bit.
Longevity became such a confusing space recently. And then it's just very difficult for someone in the industry and especially for someone outside this sector to navigate that. So I thought we can bring a little bit of order there. And the way I think about this is in horizons. Well, there's something you can do right now. And there's just a lot of things that we can use to influence our life extension. We can extend our healthy and happy life by 10, 20 years, just by working on lifestyle changes, using wearables, early diagnostic of killer diseases, avoiding dangerous choices like tobacco smoking as well. So that's an opportunity as well. But then if you want to talk about the future, so about what we're doing today and what we've done so far, we were avoiding early death. Okay, well, that's why the average lifespan on Earth increased, well, 2 times probably, from 35, 40, 100 years ago to 75 plus today. But it was basically like moving statistical average because of avoiding and fighting early deaths. That's it. So the maximum lifespan is still there. It's 122 years. And it hasn't been moved so far. So what's going to happen in the near horizon of longevity? And this is what I mean by scientific discoveries and technological breakthroughs, which will be available to us in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And they're going to help us to break the sound barrier of 122 years. And therefore, to cross and expand the maximum lifespan on Earth. And when I talk about near horizon of longevity, I'm talking about, again, DIY diagnostics. I'm talking about gene editing and gene therapy. I'm talking about regenerative medicine. I'm talking about longevity in the pill, like a new class of drugs that we're going to have. So we can talk about this more. Well, it's beautiful and it's highly technological, but obviously we need to survive for this 10 to 15 years before it's going to be available to us. So it's like Ray Kurzweil says, you need to stay on longevity bridge, just making sure your body and mind is worth expanding its resource in 10, 15, well, 20 years from now. So that's one. Then if you're trying to look at the longer term horizon, like 25 to 50 years from now, and I call it far horizon of longevity, we're talking about different things. And first of all, we will have an opportunity to redefine humans. So it's in the far horizon of longevity, the world that we're going to be living in will have human avatars we'll have human brain AI integration. And so the man and machine will become one. We're going to be integrated. It's not going to be like human intelligence fighting with artificial intelligence. It will be both integrated. This whole thing, what we call sensors today, will give us an opportunity to build Internet of Bodies. So we're all going to be full of sensors. I'm full of sensors today, but I'm an exception. So you can basically think about Internet of Bodies as similar to Internet of Things, but it's going to be people full of different sensing devices which will monitor and maintain the health of your body and mind. And we're all going to be interconnected in the distributed network and to each other as well. So this is Internet of Bodies, and we'll have an opportunity to exist in the virtual reality or in the current in material reality, and there's no limit to human life in far horizon of longevity. We can live 200 years. I'm just using the figure, like near horizon of longevity will give us an opportunity to live to 150 roughly, and the far horizon of longevity is 200 years. But again, I'm not a big fan of immortality. So it's not about immortality. It's just about your choices. And if you choose to live longer on Earth, like every 5 to 10 years time, you'll have an opportunity to extend your lifespan.
Okay, well, to get into those two horizons, in futurists, we often use timeline horizons. Usually, often it's 3 horizons, kind of short, mid, and longer term. But I want to equate what you're talking about more with a different set of scenarios, because we talk in scenarios. And, 3 common ones are the baseline. And that's what a lot of people assume. We're just going to go on the baseline. It's going to continue the way it's been going. Then we have new equilibrium and transformation. And the way I'm seeing it, in the near horizon, if we can get everybody to a longer, healthier lifespan within the current maximum of, say, 120 years, that's kind of a new equilibrium. We go to maybe unlimited, certainly well out beyond 120. That sort of becomes transformation, doesn't it? There's a lot of issues that we really don't know how it's going to change human life and human being.
Exactly. Do you want me to comment on that? I'm happy to.
Yes.
So if you think about base case scenario, I mean, it's going to be just continuation of the current trends, right? So we're going to be increasing the lifespan. We're going to be fighting with particular diseases, like something which is happening today. The current version of medicine is very disease focused. So we don't look at the root cause of so many diseases, which is aging and aging processes happening in our body. We always looking at cancer in separation, heart disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases, and this is like 90% of the deaths which are happening after the age of 50. So we will continue to fight these diseases. We're right in the middle of winning the war against cancer, and same thing will happen with heart disease. It's obviously more complicated, but less dramatic, and we'll find a way to manage diabetes and through different forms. But I'm a big fan of lifestyle changes actually to manage that, and we will find a way. We'll just understand where neurodegenerative diseases comes from, and we'll have an opportunity to fight them. So in this case, our lifespan will increase to probably 100 years, and we'll have an opportunity to influence our health span as well. So it should be very close to 100 as well. So that's my base case scenario. Like it is happening right now. There's nothing transformational there. So in your midterm scenario, or like kind of base case plus, we're going to use a lot of different innovative tools and pieces of science to manage and fight diseases as well. So, and therefore, I mean, in terms of scenarios, the one thing that I would like to point out is specific use of gene editing and gene therapy. So this for us will give an opportunity to amend human DNA either at birth or during our lifetime to create different kind of humans who are resistant to so many diseases. And this will give us an opportunity. Again, we will be able to replace organs with different technologies, whether it's going to be bioprinted or it's going to be organs from other donors, or it's going to be organs that we regrow in our liver. This is so we invested in this technology as well. It's a company called Genesis. I'm happy to share their story. So that's a different kind of humans with modified genetic code. And I do believe in this scenario, we will be able to break the sound barrier of 122 years of the maximum lifespan. So this will give us an opportunity to live certainly longer than 120, but we're still going to be working with limitations of human body and mind actually as well. So that's our kind of base case plus scenario, right? And if you think about like extreme scenario, super optimistic, then it's the whole process of redefining human body and mind. It's integration between artificial intelligence, like computer power, and human intellect. It's our existence in a virtual world, or our existence in form of robotic avatars. It's an opportunity for us to upload our brain and create a digital version of ourselves, an integration between humans and artificial intelligence. It's nanobots and nanorobots helping us to solve our emerging healthcare problems. So it's almost like completely different human beings populated on the planet.
Okay, well, there's unfortunately, and that does sound transformative, but there's a fourth possible scenario. And I'm going to go back to the very first podcast I ever did back in 2017 with David Wood about his book on longevity. And he said he thought, and we can talk about that in a second, the notion of longevity escape velocity. He thought we might reach it by 2040. He thought there was a 50% chance. Aubrey de Grey has since moved his timeline for that up a little bit into the 2030s. But he also said he thought there was a 30% chance of collapse where lifespan is greatly shortened based on all the challenges and problems that humanity faces. And obviously with COVID, we've seen a shortening of lifespan in the short term. So I know you're very optimistic in the book, but what's your take on the possibility? You know, I'm sort of throwing you a curveball here, but on the possibility of collapse, do you think we're gonna really get to this?
I'm the wrong guy to ask about collapse, right? So I'm always super optimistic, and be careful if the world would consist only from Sergey's of Sergey's young. I mean, we're gonna be in trouble. So I'm not looking at. I don't see any logical direction where the shock will come from, and will continue to collapse. Like the worst case scenario, lifespan increase in some of the countries like US will be flat. And this was the case pre-COVID for the last 5 years in the US. But this is more the way healthcare system works and the overall inefficiency and expensiveness of US healthcare system. So it's not any fundamental objective factors. This is just kind of subjective choice of human beings who run the country, regulators, and big food and big pharma business. That's it. But I do believe that you're raising a very important point here, Mark, is if you ask people today, like in US and UK, at least I've seen data from both countries, whether they're going to like the idea of extending their lifespan, 65 to 75% of people say no. And for me, again, I'm an extremely positive person. It sounds unexplainable. So I'm always thinking about this, like with all this great stuff happening here, what is happening in human mind that we reject the idea of living longer on this planet? And what I found out, this is my personal conclusion. Obviously, I'm not sure if this is the right answer. So we have created technology and science to extend our life, but we haven't created life that we want to extend. So in fact, I think in 20 years from now, the biggest obstacles for human life extension and increase of our health span, because we're not working on lifespan only, we're working on health span as well, is going to be not in the form of science, not in the field of technology, but it's going to be human ethics and regulation. So there's going to be like the biggest obstacles for us to embrace and implement all the innovations and breakthroughs in this area. And there's so many things that we need to solve. Like in the book, this is actually the last chapter before the bonus one, like what you can do today. The last chapter of the book called Morality of Immortality. And it is about our ethical choices. It is about the problem or problems that we need to solve in today's world for people to embrace the idea of living longer.
Okay, I'd like to talk about a couple of things that you touched on, one of which, both of which are issues that I originally discussed with Aubrey de Grey when I first had him on, and two things that he has talked about and even perhaps coined one of the phrases. Let's start with the notion of longevity escape velocity, which you talk about in the far horizon of longevity in the book. Something that interests me, because right now, as you say, the lifestyle is basically what we can do along with preventive medicine, hopefully getting proper health care, but also there are maybe some supplements, maybe NAD plus, metformin. The last longevity dialogues Nir Barzilai was on and talked a little bit about longevity dialogue, excuse me, about metformin and TAME trials. And he is mentioned in the book. But in terms of escape velocity, what's coming in the next 10 years beyond that stuff? I know, for example, that the Methuselah Foundation has now created a mission statement to make 90 the new 50 by 2030. I'll be 80 in 2030. So that excites me.
It works for you, Mark.
It works for me. Is that something that's reasonable?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you obviously, it's a beautiful example of it's not only, how to extend your productive life, but why to do this. So this is great. Having a sense of purpose always helps, actually. The question is what we can expect in the next 10 years, right? Obviously, I mentioned longevity and escape velocity in the book, but this is a beautiful concept. I don't know whether we ever will have an opportunity to understand that we're living in a world with longevity and escape velocity. But what I do know, in the future, your life extension choice, or some people say immortality choice, I'm not a big fan of immortality, is going to look like, so your life going to look like a series of life extension decisions that you would need to take every 5 to 10 years. So it's not going to be like the only day during your lifetime when you're going to decide if you're going to live like 200 years or you want to be immortal. It's going to be, well, I have this opportunity today. Well, this is the current technology. Is it something I want to use and extend my life on Earth or not? And this is actually one of the ethical problems as well, because in today's world, this is called suicide, or this is called playing God, because you're going to be making decisions whether you're going to be dying or extending your lifespan. So that's that's an interesting ethical and moral dilemma. But coming back to your question, so what will happen in 10 years from now? Few things. Gene therapy, and we are now all participating in a mass experiment, hopefully positive one. I do believe it's positive experiment with gene therapy. Moderna, AstraZeneca vaccines are, the outcome of gene therapy. So this is great. So in 10 years from now, we're going to have plenty of gene editing options, and we will be able to help a lot of people with rare genetic disease, but also with some common diseases that we're suffering today, like cancer, heart disease, and even diabetes, to use gene therapy to treat it or to prevent it. So that's my big assumption, but also big hope in terms of what we'll be able to achieve in 10 years from now. In 10 years from now, we will be at the point when we can solve the problem with organ replacements and organ regeneration. It's going to be a combination of using different biomaterials to regrow the organs, probably from animals as well. This is what Martin Rothblatt, amazing woman, an entrepreneur, an inventor, doing in United Therapeutics, or 3D bioprinted organs, or organ regeneration in a way of regrowing our organs inside our lymph nodes. And this is what is done by Genesis company that Jim Mellon and us, Longevity Vision Fund, invested in. They're based in Pittsburgh. Then in 10 years time, we're going to have a new class of drugs, which is going to be anti-aging drug, age reversal drugs, or longevity drugs. This is a new set of drugs which will influence your health span and lifespan. And they not necessarily focus on one particular disease, but because they're addressing the mechanisms of aging inside your body, you will be able to reverse your biological age by 2, 3, and probably even 5 years. So that's going to happen in our field. And our wearables will become personalized healthcare devices. So they will be able to monitor a lot of things. They already personalized healthcare devices, but they would add like blood pressure monitor, glucose monitor. I need to wear this separately now. Therefore, the version of medicine in 10 years from now going to be completely focused on data. It's going to be very precise, and it's going to be very preventive. So it's going to be the whole new life.
Well, it sounds good. And let me do the math here. So if 90 can be the new 50 by 2030, maybe 80 will be the new 40. I can only hope. I can only
look,
hope.
We have this love-hate relationship with our age and with lifespan and health span as well. So this, while this sector exists, and we always been in search of the fountain of youth, it's going to be inflation of expectations and some of the targets that we communicate. So like I'm saying, I want to live 200 years. But like I know the man in China who wants to live 300 years. So it's always going to be some crazy guy like Sergey Young 1 or Sergey Young 2 who's going to be mentioned in figures here. But what is it? And living to 200 is completely irresponsible promise today. We don't have a technology. We don't have a science to live there. But as our good friend Peter Diamandis says, something is impossible until it's possible one day. So I'm very hopeful, and I have another 73 years to live before I turn 122. There's plenty of time for you and me and a lot of great people on the planet to develop solution to that. And obviously, people think we're working on quantity, just adding years to our life. Obviously, we working on quality, because I've never seen any technology that we invested in or science which were not improving health span as well. Moreover, disproportionately, I think it's more about health span improvement rather than lifespan. This is just communication issue.
Well, that's a good point. Let's go to something you alluded to about the people who kind of resist the idea of
Yeah.
radical life extension and that pro-aging trance that Aubrey de Grey talks about. It's an interesting problem, as you have said, as you said to me at the X Prize 2 years ago. We got to create demand for these therapies if we want to implement them, which means we got to turn that public um, opinion around. So, I think one of the things that I find interesting, you mentioned in your book, a book which I read when it first came out, and that was Empty Planet. And there is the notion that we don't have the resources for all the people we have now. Why do we want with a population to explode, where in fact there are scenarios out there right now where population collapses, not because we've done anything terrible to us, but just because birth rates globally are plunging and are already below replacement in all the Western developed countries.
So if you think about the future and overpopulation argument, there's so many things that we can discuss. So, and people have number of concern about living longer. So one is it going to be affordable and accessible? Is all life extension and digital healthcare solutions? And my answer is yes. Like wherever we invest through Longevity Vision Fund, it does give us 10 to 20, not percent, times improvement in terms of the cost against the current paradigm, current intervention, or current protocol, or current medical solution to solve this or that problem. So that's extremely important, that we're working on democratization of highly efficient, tech-based, and obviously science-based version of medicine. So that's question one. Question two is like, would we have enough resources? And what I'm always saying, like the only place on earth where we have limited resources is our mind. That's it. We live in a world where resources are abundant. We're just inefficient in terms of resource allocation. I'm talking about inequality gap in financial terms, so think about the cost of renewable energy generation. Right now, it's just exponentially decreasing all the time. So, and it's competing with the old methods of generation or food. Like the question is, when people are hungry on the planet, like 1 billion people are suffering from that. Like, do we have enough food? Yes, we do. 45% of food goes to waste every day in the US. And this is from our households, from the restaurants, from supermarkets. This is ridiculous. This is it's such an efficient allocation of resources. So we do have enough resources. We've been inefficient with allocating that. And then my biggest concern is the ethics of today's and future world. And this is where we need to have a global conversation, and we need to have it today. We need to start it today. You don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. We need to define like what is possible and how we want to change the world. And the same goes to like our relationship with Mother Nature. We're going to be living longer, substantially longer than we expect today in our relatively limited or skeptical mind. So we just need to make very important conclusions and takeaways. And finally, in terms of overpopulation, spot on in terms of reproductive rates. If you look at the recent study, I think it was last year published in Lancet. And so if you just factor in current reproduction rates, which are well below 2 in so many countries on Earth, probably with a huge exception of African continents, the population of Earth gonna reach 10 to 11 billion by 2050, so 2 or 3 billion up from today's, and then it's gonna decline to 8 billion by the end of this century. China alone will lose 600 million of people in population if they don't react to this demographic trend. So it's going to be down from 1.4 billion to 800 million people. And China, again, is just an example. I mean, all the world will suffer from this trend. So unless we respond to that with, and we try to influence this demographic trend through different means, including the mean of digital healthcare, and universal basic healthcare offered to everyone, we're not going to solve this problem.
That really is spot on from my viewpoint. And by the way, I believe in Empty Planet, they had the population by 2050 peaking only at about 9 or 9.5 billion, which is still more drain on resources than we have now, but then declining. So, you know, if we're going to need the productivity of older people, you know, crazies like me who start new ventures at age 70. Let's talk about, I want to get on my soapbox for a second. So pardon me, because I know the publishers talk about you, but one of the objections to longevity and that pro-aging trance that you talk about that just makes me pull my hair out is the one about, well, we don't want dictators to live forever, you know, and tyrants, therefore we shouldn't have longevity. First of all, are you kidding me? 8 billion of us should die, so a handful of nasties won't continue. But that's the emotional reaction. The logical reaction is look at the history. And if you look at the history of the last 100 years, dictatorships don't die because the dictator dies. Look at Cuba, look at North Korea. But dictators die because the dictatorship dies. Look at Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, Adolf Hitler. They died because their dictatorships collapsed. So, you know, there's, if you look at the logical history of it, that makes no sense. So, but at any rate, I just had to get that one off of my chest because you mentioned it. But those are my takes on it. But let's get to the third one, and one of the biggest problems is human meaning in the extended lifespan. And you know, we've held me up as an example, but I'm only 70. I'm not 100. In Nir Barzilai's book that you talk about, he mentions people continue to work into their 90s and past age 100. But you know, I look at my friends who have retired, and you know, most of them aren't doing what I'm doing. They're tired and they're playing golf every day. What's your take on the masses trying to find meaning in an extended lifespan?
Yeah, well, I do think you can outsource a lot of things to other people. Finding the meaning of life, you cannot outsource. So it comes back to our individual work, and it's a huge work of our heart and our mind to find that. And you'll always find people who are pessimistic in the age of 25 or 45, and they might have a valid reasons to do so. And you will always find people who are at their 60s or 70s or 80s, and they have a lot of plans on this planet that is sticking around, and they actually working on something new, brave and interesting. And so my take on that, like when I found meaning, was more about when I started to share the best of me with the world, when I started to give to the world and to the universe more than I take. This is the point of time in my life where I found the meaning. That's why everything I do in longevity is non-commercial. I'm trying to make the world a better place. Well, this is where I found the meaning. But I do think it's a very personal question, and we live in a culture like when we're trying to blame someone for our own problems or ask them to solve our own issues, and you cannot really outsource this decision. It's really up to you, to what you've created in life and what you want to create.
All right, let's one last question to ask you before we wrap this up, because you are on the X Prize Innovation Board. You work with Peter and with Ray Kurzweil and the like. And I first met you a little over 2 years ago there when we were brainstorming ideas for a Longevity X Prize. And I know that's getting close. What can you tell us about the X Prize, the Longevity X Prize? How are we close to announcing that? What can you tell us?
So it's been very interesting 2 years, and unlike any other X Prize competition, and an X Prize competition is pro bono competition when you just bring in a huge prize and you pay it to the team which develops solution, like the best solution to the world's biggest problems. Like the largest X Prize competition we launched was earlier this year, was together with Elon Musk for $100 million to be paid to the team or teams which would develop solution to take CO2 from the air and convert it in a minimum viable product. So that's called Carbon Removal X Prize. We've done X Prize with Elon Musk before. It was Global Learning X Prize as well. And I was always dreaming about Age Reversal X Prize, when the winning team should demonstrate that because of their science or intervention or their technology, the biological age of the people in a sample group has been reversed by so many years. Well, we just need to look at like what's going to be the outcome of different teams, but obviously it should be regulatory approved today, so there's no experiments. And the reason why it took us almost 2 years to develop to design this prize, and this is what I sponsored, is that we're talking about human lives here. So the cost of mistake is enormous. So what we've done, we combined a group of amazing minds and hearts, people like George, David Sinclair, Terry Grossman, Ray Kurzweil, Peter Diamandis, Nir Barzilai. There's so many people influencing the design of this, and we're still looking at reversing aging based on a set of biomarkers. There's going to be a number of biological clocks that we're going to use in the course of, well, right now it's 12 months, where the winning team needs to demonstrate that it can reverse aging. And it's been already done in the world, like simple lifestyle modifications in the course of 8 weeks can reverse your biological age by 2 or 3 years. So that's just happening. So we have more ambitious goal rather than -2 or -3 years of our biological age. And so we finished design stage early this year, 2021. And we currently in discussion with few sponsors to raise $50 to $100 million for as a prize purse, as amount of money that's going to be paid to the winning team or winning teams. And we do hope we can announce that and launch this early next year. But again, it's up to the outcome of our process of trying to find a sponsor.
Okay, well, I'm very hopeful. It was really kind of exciting to be part of that process. That's where you and I first met, and that was a very memorable experience for me. So, anyway, Sergey, I really want to thank you. It's always great to have you on. Congratulations on the new book. I'll post links to it. It's The Science and Technology of Growing Young, out August 24, which is right about when we're releasing this podcast. So I've read it. I think it's a tremendously thorough, understandable, enjoyable, readable. I mean, I know a lot of the people that you mentioned. They've been on my podcast or I've met them, but for everyone else, I think for even the neophyte in longevity, this book is a great step. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, Mark. We are already #1 new release on Amazon in 3 categories, like preventive medicine, longevity, and aging. And this is like a month while we're doing this podcast recording, month before the book launch. So I'm very proud of what we achieved. And we put together a great offer for anyone who ordered the book. You can go to sergeyyoung.com and claim like a free access to Longevity Video Academy, where we have 12 10-minute video highlighting and defining all the aspects of longevity today, tomorrow, in the far horizon as well. So I do think it's going to be an important book for all of us in terms of changing our mindset and helping all of us to stay healthy and happy for as long as we want.
Great. Thank you so much, Sergey, and I hope to see you back in the future on Seeking Delphi and see how everything has progressed.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.